The day I was fired. The person who did it never looked up. I was already seated when the door clicked shut behind me. Glass walls. Conference room. Same one I'd walked into for years thinking I belonged there. I didn't. Apparently. My name is Aurora, 52 years old. She stayed focused on the folder in front of her. Didn't glance up. Didn't clear her throat. No warm-up, just went straight for it, like reading off a grocery list. You're fired. Effective immediately. No pause after. No reaction check, just air. Then came the second part. The part that made my stomach drop a beat late. We'll need the entire logistics system handed over by end of day. All of it. HR was already in the room, tablet open, pen ready. That part hurt more than the firing. It meant this wasn't sudden. It was scheduled. I felt stupid for not seeing it coming. My laptop chimed. That Outlook disconnect sound. Soft, polite, final. I still hate that noise. I glanced at the screen. No access. No inbox. No calendar. Like I'd never existed there. There was a security guard outside the glass. Not facing in. Facing the hallway. Like I might bolt. I wouldn't have even known where to run. She finally looked up then. Not at me. At my hands. Empty. Waiting. The silence stretched. Long enough that someone shifted in their chair. Long enough that I realized I was smiling. Not a brave smile. Not a power move. Just muscle memory. The kind you use when you don't know what else to do. I'm afraid I can't. It came out quieter than I expected. Slower. 2. Her pen stopped tapping. Just for a second. Then it started again, faster this time. This is the part people imagine as dramatic. Raised voices. Threats. That didn't happen. Firings are administrative. They feel like paperwork pretending to be a conversation. I gathered my bag, not in a rush. I needed my hands to stop shaking first, or before I left. I caught my reflection in the glass. Same face, same posture. Different rules. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Her Fear. Names, companies, and events are imagined for storytelling purposes. What isn't imagined is the feeling of being erased in real time, or what it does to you when someone treats the thing you built like office furniture they can just carry out. I walked past the guard, down the hallway, toward the exit. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, then went quiet. She leaned back after I spoke, just enough to suggest the conversation was already over. The pen started clicking again. Sharp, fast, like she had someplace else to be. You'll cooperate, she said, eyes drifting to the tablet in front of HR. Not a question. A conclusion. I nodded. Small, controlled. The kind of nod that looks like agreement if you want it to. Of course. I let the word sit, then added, softer. I'll send what I'm allowed to send. Her pen paused, not because she caught it, because she was bored with the details. She smiled, the tight professional kind, and checked the time on her watch. End of day, she said. We don't want delays. HR finally looked up at me. Not apologetic, just alert. Like she was making sure I didn't say something unpredictable. I didn't give her the satisfaction. We'll expect full cooperation, the CEO added, already gathering the folder. Legal will be looped in if needed. If needed. That was the threat. Clean, corporate, no raised voice, no warning label. I understand, I said. It was true. I understood exactly what she was doing. She thought calm meant cornered. She thought quiet meant compliant. She stood. So did HR. Chairs scraped. The meeting dissolved without ceremony. I stayed seated a second longer, just to watch her walk out like she'd checked something off a list. The pen clicking echoed in my head. I hated that it got to me. I hated that I noticed. Honestly, I should have walked out with him, slammed the door, made a scene. That would have felt better in the moment. Instead, I sat there, counting my breaths, because I wanted to see how far she'd push once she thought she'd won. This is the part where people expect shouting, threats, big reactions. None of that happened. Power doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it just assumes you'll fold. I picked up my bag and stood. The room felt smaller now. Or maybe I was just more aware of how little space I was being given. My phone buzzed as I stepped into the hallway. A new email notification. Subject line already visible. System documentation request. I didn't open it yet. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say. I went home after that. No dramatic exit. No crying in the car. Just tired in a way that settled behind my eyes and stayed there. I dropped my bag by the door and pulled the contract out of the drawer where it had lived for years. Folded, unloved, still warm from the printer memory in my head. When I opened it, the paper gave off that old smell toner and dust and something dry that always reminded me of offices where decisions get made without you. I found the clause right away. I always did. Years ago, different building, different boardroom, same table shape, same smiles. Their lawyer leaned back, sighing like I was slowing down traffic. He tapped the page with the end of his pen. "This part isn't necessary," he said, not even looking at me. Standard language covers it. I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue. I just slid the paper back across the table and shook my head. I retain ownership. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that makes people uncomfortable because no one wants to be the next one to talk. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else checked their phone like it might save them. "That's unusual," the lawyer muttered. "So am I." I hadn't planned to say that, and it came out anyway. There was a pause. Long enough that I thought they might walk away. Then the pen came down. One signature, heavy pressure. Like they were annoyed with the paper for giving in. I didn't protect that clause because I believed in myself. I did it because I don't trust companies. I've watched them smile while they strip names off work and pretend it happened by accident. If you've ever been told not to worry about something that took years of your life, you already know how that feels. I closed the contract and set it on the table. My phone buzzed again. Another email, then another. Subject lines stacking up like they were getting impatient with me. I didn't open them yet. I made coffee instead. Let it sit untouched. I needed my hands steady before the next part. The email came in just after noon. No greeting. No small talk. Straight to the point, like she was correcting a typo. Please confirm in writing that all intellectual property related to the logistics system belongs to the company. That wasn't a request. It was a rewrite. I read it twice, then a third time. Slower, like speed might change the meaning. It didn't. This wasn't about transition or documentation or making sure things kept running. This was a claim, a clean one. If I confirmed it, I erased myself with my own hands. I opened the contract, same drawer, same crease down the middle. The clause sat there, patient. I took a screenshot, cropped it tight, no extra text, no explanation. I attached it to a reply with nothing in the body. My hands shook when I hovered over send. Not panic, anger, the quiet kind that makes your fingers clumsy. I hated that it showed up now. After all this time, I hated that she could still get a reaction out of me. Part of me wondered if I was pushing too hard, if this would turn into something ugly, if a softer answer would keep things civil. I didn't soften it. I didn't add a line. I didn't apologize for existing. This is usually where people fold, where they write a careful paragraph, hedge their words, try to sound reasonable. I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I was tired of explaining things to people who never planned to listen. The reply left my outbox. A second later, the red receipt popped up. Fast. Too fast. She'd been waiting. My phone buzzed. Another message. Same thread. Short. That clause is outdated. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then I locked the phone and set it face down on the table. I could feel the shift then. Not in the room. In me. This wasn't cost-cutting anymore. This was erasure. And she just made it clear she expected my permission. I stood up and went to the garage. I didn't turn anything on yet. I just needed to be near the thing she was trying to rename. I sat down in the garage with the door half open. Not for air, just habit. The control panel was already warm, lights steady, everything behaving the way it always did when nothing was wrong. I didn't shut it down. That matters. Shutting it down would have been loud. Alerts. Errors. People scrambling. This wasn't that. I reached for the switch that never gets touched unless something is already broken. My finger hovered longer than I expected, long enough for doubt to try sneaking in. Then I flipped it. The lights didn't go red. They didn't flash. They paused, like the system took a breath and decided not to let it out. On their side, everything would still look fine. Dashboards green, timelines intact. The lie would hold for a while. The hum stopped. That low vibration you don't notice until it's gone. The one that settles into your bones after years of standing near it. The silence felt heavier than noise ever did. I waited for guilt, for panic, for the urge to undo it. None of that showed up. What came instead was calm. And that scared me more than anger would have. I stood there with my hand still near the switch, wondering when I'd cross the line from defending myself to something else. People think revenge feels hot, sharp, loud. This felt cold, technical, like following instructions you wrote for someone who would never read them. My phone buzzed on the workbench. I didn't check it. Not yet. The system needed time to lie convincingly before it failed honestly. I wiped my hands on my jeans even though they weren't dirty and stepped back. The panel stayed quiet. No alarms? No protest? It trusted me to know what I was doing. I turned off the light and closed the door behind me. Inside the house, everything sounded normal. Too normal. I knew the first email would come soon. Polite and confused, like someone knocking on the wrong door. I made coffee and let it go cold. I wanted my hands steady when the pretending finally stopped. The first email came mid-morning. Subject line casual. Almost friendly. Probably nothing. Just a small sync delay. I read it once and closed the laptop. Opened it again a minute later like the words might rearrange themselves into something honest. They didn't. The second one followed before the coffee finished brewing. Seeing a routing conflict on the East Corridor might be a cache issue. I stared at the screen. The system doesn't do might. It either knows or it doesn't. This was it pretending. The third email landed harder. 2 trucks assigned to the same dock. Looking into it. That one had a name on it. Mark, Operations. He'd been decent to me. Asked questions. Listened when I explained things instead of pretending he already knew. I felt it in my chest. That pull to help. Habit is a stubborn thing. My phone rang. I let it buzz itself quiet. A few minutes later, another message. Shorter. Less polished. Can you just take a quick look? I said no out loud. Just the word. Quiet. Like a reminder. The coffee sat beside my laptop. Steam gone. Surface untouched. I hadn't realized how long I'd been sitting there. They were still polite. That's how I knew it was early. Politeness means hope. It means they think the right person just hasn't answered yet. Once that goes, everything changes. Another email came in. This one looping more people. No accusations yet. Just concern. Carefully worded. Corporate worry. I hated ignoring them. I hated knowing exactly who was stuck trying to clean this up. Some of them didn't deserve the mess. That thought almost did it. Almost made me open my mouth and explain. If you're wondering why I didn't warn them, yeah, I wondered too. More than once. I kept my hands off the keyboard anyway. The system kept lying. Dashboard still green. Timelines intact. On paper, everything was fine. In reality, small failures were stacking up. Quiet and patient. Waiting their turn. Another email arrived while I was still reading the last one. The tone had shifted. Less casual now. No greeting. I closed the laptop again. Not because I was done. Because I wasn't ready to answer yet. The invite came marked urgent. No subject line. Just a time and a link. When I joined, the screen filled fast. Legal first. 2 of them. Then operations. Finance after that. Faces tight. Shoulders forward. The CEO was already there. Camera on. Mic muted. She sat very still. That was new. Someone from legal leaned toward their screen. Papers stacked behind him. Slightly crooked. We're experiencing a system-wide disruption. We need restoration options. I didn't rush to answer. Let the silence do its work. I sent them this morning. A pause. Someone else clicked their mouse too loudly. Another voice came in. Sharper. Trying to sound calm. The terms are aggressive. They're emergency terms. The CEO finally unmuted. Her jaw was tight. Eyes fixed on me like I'd changed shape. This is extortion. I felt my throat tighten before the words came out. Just once. My voice cracked. I hated that it did. I pushed through it anyway. No, this is math. You terminated access. The system responded exactly the way it was designed to. Someone forgot to mute. Heavy breathing filled the call for a second before cutting off. Nobody apologized. Operations spoke next. Different tone. Less posturing. We've got missed deliveries. Conflicting assignments. We're burning time. Legal jumped back in. Faster now. Is there flexibility on the timeline? 30 minutes after confirmation. The CEO leaned forward. Not confident anymore. Focused. You could have warned us. I did. The words came out flat. In writing. That landed. I watched it register. One face at a time. They needed me. Fully. Finally. Not as a vendor. Not as a line item. As the only person who could stop the bleed. This is the moment people think feels good. I said. Before I could stop myself, it doesn't. Another pause. Then a quiet voice from finance. We're authorizing the transfer. I nodded once, didn't smile, didn't thank anyone. The call stayed open, everyone waiting, watching their screens like something might explode if they looked away. I muted my mic and stood up. My hands were shaking again. Not from fear, from holding them steady for too long. The confirmation came through while the call was still open. Finance cleared their throat and said my name like it weighed something now. Funds are released. I looked at the clock. Didn't move. Not yet. Legal started talking again. Faster this time. Explaining timelines. Expectations. Next steps. I let it roll past me. The CEO watched without interrupting, her mouth pressed into a line she couldn't smooth out. I'll restore service in 30 minutes. I said, not sooner. Operations started to argue, then stopped. Someone else nodded. They needed the delay to feel earned. I muted the call and walked back into the garage. The panel waited where it always had. Lights dull, patient. I rested my hand near the switch and counted. Not because I had to, because I wanted to remember what it felt like to have time. When I flipped it back, the lights came alive in sequence. Not all at once, one after another, like the system checking its own pulse. Data streams reconnected. Status indicators climbed back to green. The hum returned. Low, familiar. Like the whole thing had been holding its breath and finally let it go. My phone started ringing, then stopped. Then rang again. I ignored it until the panel settled into its rhythm. Only then did I go back to the call. It's live, I said. Relief crossed the screen in different ways. Shoulders dropping. Someone laughing too loudly. Operations thanked me. Legal nodded. The CEO stayed quiet. She didn't look at me this time. She stared past the camera like she was watching something leave. I didn't smile. I thought I would. I'd imagined that part. The release. The satisfaction. What I felt instead was empty. Like finishing something you'd been holding together for so long, you forgot what it was supposed to give you back. If you were expecting applause, I said, keeping my voice even. So was I. No one replied. The call ended without ceremony. I stood there listening to the hum and realized it sounded the same as it always had. The difference was me. The next email didn't come from her. Different name, different tone, short subject line, no urgency flags. That alone told me enough. I opened it slowly, like I was bracing for something sharp. We want to do this right. No mention of the week we just lived through. No apology. No excuses. And her name wasn't anywhere on the thread. Not copied. Not hidden. Just gone. The attachment was a new contract. Cleaner language. Fewer assumptions. Ownership spelled out without dancing around it. Access defined. Limits defined. Respect. Baked in like it should have been from the start. I printed it anyway. Old habit. The printer jammed halfway through. Paper folded in on itself like it had second thoughts. I laughed. Out loud. It surprised me. The sound bounced off the walls and felt too big for the room. When I got back on the call, it was just the new executive and someone from legal I hadn't met before. Younger voice, careful, listening. We want to rebuild this relationship. She said, long term. I didn't nod. I didn't smile. I flipped to the clause they used to fight me on and tapped the page. Then read every line. All of it, especially the parts you think don't matter. There was a pause. Not uncomfortable. Considered. We already did, she said. That's why it's written this way. That landed harder than anything else had. I wasn't negotiating from a corner anymore. I wasn't explaining myself. I wasn't asking to be understood. The work had done that for me. Part of me missed how simple things were before all this. Before meetings turned into leverage and silence carried weight. That thought passed quickly. Simplicity hadn't protected me then. Winning doesn't always feel like winning. Sometimes it just feels quieter, like the noise finally moved somewhere else. I signed the contract and sent it back. Closed the laptop. The garage was still warm from the system running steady behind the walls. I stayed there a moment longer than necessary, listening to it work, knowing the last decision still hadn't been made. The system kept running. Clean, steady, no alerts, no surprises. It did exactly what it was built to do, which was almost funny, considering how much noise it had caused. Emails kept coming in. New names. New companies. Short messages that all sounded the same once you stripped them down. We heard about what you did. We could use someone like you. Let's talk. I didn't answer all of them. Some I opened and closed without replying. A few I left unread. One or two I flagged, then unflagged, then flagged again. I wasn't trying to be strategic. I was tired of reacting. The garage smelled like oil and warm dust, that familiar mix that settles in after long hours of keeping something alive. I stood there with my hands on the edge of the workbench, listening to the system hum behind the wall. Same sound as always. Same rhythm. The difference was I wasn't standing guard anymore. I protected what I built. That part is done. What I didn't expect was how quiet everything felt after. Not peaceful, just empty in a way that made room for thoughts I'd been avoiding. Like whether I actually wanted to keep doing this, keep building things for people who only notice when they break. I thought about the CEO, about how sure she'd been, about how small she looked on that last call. I didn't feel proud of that. I didn't feel guilty either. It just was before I shut the lights off. I checked the console one last time. All green, all stable. I rested my palm against the casing, feeling the vibration through the metal. Here's the life lesson I walked away with, even if I didn't plan on learning one. Protecting what you build is not the same as knowing why you're building it. One keeps you safe. The other decides whether it's worth continuing. I turned the light off and left the garage the way it was. Running, waiting. Like me.